So we're going to walk.
L'chaim, l'chaim.
Make the program.
Pilot the Amman now.
Called Liberty Kosher. Right.
The work is to make lichtig. The Rebbe Marash today is the Yom Haledes L'chatchila Riber. So apparently there was a time in Russia they were selling out these certificates. The government needed money. Today they issue bonds, right? But again, at that time they were so desperate for money, maybe their bonds were not worth anything.
They put in the rest you.
Exactly. So what did they do? So the Tsar's government had this eitzah. They sold these documents. You buy a document like this, you don't have to go to the army. So you can buy it for your son, for your grandson. At first they issued a whole bunch of them, and then they saw that business was good, so they hiked up the price, and then they stopped selling them. So it was really expensive thing to have. The Rebbe Maharash had one of them, one of these certificates, but he has 3 sons. Beis says the oldest son was easy to get off the hook, and the paper he kept for the youngest son, the middle son, the Rebbe Rashab. See if he was tall and he was handsome and he was strong, so how was he going to get? He didn't want him to go to the army. Versteht sich. So he traveled with his son to Vitebsk. Vitebsk was, the capital, and over there was the governor of Vitebsk. It was a Rosh Merusha. And he had an interest. He wanted that Dafke, the son of the Rebbe, should be in the army. The Rebbe Marash said, my son is not fit for the army. So he said, let my doctors will check him out. So the kid said the Rebbe Marash had worked very hard, and the Tsar's doctor wrote a letter that he's not fit, but he didn't want obviously he didn't want him to be checked out by any of the local doctors, because they might find that the Tsar's doctor doesn't know that much. The kid said there was a big shock that Rebbe Marash himself went to Vitebsk to meet the governor of Vitebsk. So the governor of Vitebsk said, so it's a din dvorim, the Rebbe Marash said that my son will not be in the army, because my son is a servant in Hashem's army. So apparently there was a talk back and forth. The Rebbe Marash, and he said, I'm going to send soldiers. I'm going to get your son. Apparently there was a law that if you try to get out of the service of the army, so you get dumped in for a lifetime service. I'm going to send soldiers to get your son, a lifetime service. The Marash said something like, that's if you live out the week, then you'll be able to send the soldiers. And the Marash got up, walked out of the room, stormed out of the room. So for a moment, this guy had a little hit of tshuvas. He went running after the Rebbe Marash, and he said, "You know what? Make a deal. I have to save face too. Will your son come here just for one day? He'll put on the Russian uniform just for a day, and then I could save face and you could save face." The Rebbe Marash said, "No deal." The guy died that week. No one wanted the Rebbe Marash's son in the army after that.
Wow.
So. The Rebbe Koch and the Rebbe the Rebbe Marash said that the Welt sagt that you try to go out, you try to wiggle your way through, but if you can't, then you get a riber. You have to go a riber. You have to take the highway l'chatchila. What does that mean in Avodas Hashem? Here there's a Farbrengen Yud Gimel Tishrei Tavshim Mem Hey, the Yortzet, the Rebbe Marash, the Rebbe said. Chassidische Farbrengen, the Alter Rebbe said that there was a note that came down from heaven that said, "Was Chassidische Farbrengen can uftan, Malach Mechol can uftan. Chassidische Farbrengen can accomplish what Malach Mechol can't do." What's taka the pshat? So the pshat is because the Malachim, they come from Alma the Pruda. They come from the highest angel comes from the Olam Abriya. But when Yidden get together, there's the Achdus. In Yidden, it's like the Alter Rebbe says, "Neshama shenasata b'tahoyri ata berosa." The Alter Rebbe, what do you mean? Tohiri Ataviros, it was pure and then it was created? You could say something is created was pure. Then it got soiled. But B'shasa was created, it was pure. What does it mean? Tohiri, it's pure and then it was created. Alter Rebbe says no, because the Neshama comes hard from the world of Bria. Rosi, Tzartan, Afachtel. But the Neshama comes from a place of purity. So when Hashemas get together, this Achdus is gewaldig. Therefore, they can accomplish more than Malach Michal. More than Malach Michal. They say a story that Rebbe Marash, he was at a bris, so he was bebedichos adas. The Rebbe Marash's style apparently was, he was like he always smiled and he used to make jokes. He said a bris is a good thing. Why is a bris a good thing? So the Esha Zachi is because there's mashke, a bissel mashke. And the second thing is mezetzich mit Eliyahu. And when he said that, they saw his face got red. In other words, that was like, it was real. It wasn't just, but it's interesting. This story is told by Harav Perlov, Rabbi Drizin's grandfather by marriage. But so apparently many of his stories are very reliable. The Rebbe told several stories from Rabbi Perlov's book. It's interesting. So in other words, the Rebbe Marash said the first mile of a Farbrengen is Avahanam Tabisal Mashke. The second mile is a Mazetzach mit Eliyahu.
It should be the other way around.
It should be the other way around. Elamai, weißt du, is when zwei Yidden, they get together, they take Mashke and make L'chaim, there's Achdus, there's a huge mile in it. And anyway, Eliyahu, not everyone is Eichel to see. And but to take a little Mashke together, that's not that complicated. Akaponim, when there's Achdus between Klal Yisrael, that's a Kliya Machzik Brocha, that's unbelievable Brocha comes through that. More Brocha than could come to Klal Yisrael than Malach Mecholus and the Goyden Shal Yisrael. The Rebbe went on to ask, L'choyde, these Farbrengens used to be televised. The Rebbe used to speak in something that's La Mamash Kekotin Kegodel. The Godel should be doing the Poshet Shepshutim, that a Poshet, a Goy would turn on the television, that he could understand something. The Rebbe would say, L'choyde, human beings ain't the same Shabbos. The Rebbe made that no two human beings are the same. So, by definition, people have different ways of thinking. So, how do you become Achdus? So, the truth is, there's a lot of Meforshim that say Kamoicha doesn't mamish mean Kamoicha. How could it be Kamoicha? How could you love someone else like yourself? Impossible. The Ramban says that you should, sometimes there's a saying in Yiddish, mefagint nicht. That someone else has something good, and you just, it eats up someone else's heart. So good nature, so forgiven. It's good for him. Baruch Hashem, I'm very happy. It's good for him. It's good. So that's what the Ramban says. That I see another Yid. It's good for him. Just like when things go good for me, I'm happy. It goes good for another Yid, I'm happy. Doesn't mean kamoicha mamish. Rabbi Ebenezer has a kliyokar. Each one has a pshat, but the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya that kamoicha means mamish. Ma pasha kamoicha means I love another Yid like me. The Alter Rebbe says in Periklam is basic because if the neshama is the ikir and the guf is tafel, the neshamas are really all interlock. It's one thing. But how do you get there? So there's there is one road is you have to learn it and learn it again and learn it again. If it doesn't penetrate, a person has to a little bit work on himself. But then there's another way, but to jump into it. A Yid has a need, but the Alter Rebbe says that kamoicha, it's like me. So maybe I jump into the project to help out another Yid. We're learning on Gemara Tainus. Gemara Tainus is a story about Reb Nochem Ish Gamzu. We're going to get to the Gemara in a couple of weeks. Unbelievable story because he died in a terrible death, and he said that he wanted to die that way because he wanted to tshuva, because once a poor person asked him, he said, "Wait a few minutes till I'll give you," and then the guy died. So the lachatchila means that we're not going to wait. Taka, we know as chassidim that kamoicha means that we sit with another Yid, we take a little mashke, it's kamoicha mamash. But we're not going to wait till we feel the kamoicha mamash in order to pile mamash to help another Yid. See that there's another Yid, right away we jump into the project. Another Yid needs something, immediately jump into it. Last night there was a Farbrengen for Beis Iyar. That's in the future, that's the Kemah for the Farbrengen. I'm just going to be busy with the baby. And next year, Lashon will be Yerushalayim. So there's a Farbrengen they make annually for Tzira Agudas Chabad, an organization that the Rebbe started in 1954. It was a special thing that Rebbe started this organization. Officially, all the shluchim in New York and the tri-state area are under the umbrella of this institution. That means when I get invited to any event, it's done through Tzira Agudas Chabad. in Lubavitch, everyone lives, Baruch Hashem. So I get an invitation signed by the David Raskin. David Raskin passed away already many years ago.
He still has his signatures
still send
preserved.
Yeah. It's still signed by the David Raskin.
Okay.
So, Chabad is the umbrella organization, but New York, if you're a shliach, you have to be under Tzira Gudus Chabad. They have a Farbrengen once
It's
a
not
year.
your mushroom.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not a good thing.
We should make
So,
David Raskin.
Yeah, so the Rabbi Castell told a story. Apparently in COL or something, there was a story about the first Seder in Kathmandu. There was
Really?
the first Seder in Kathmandu 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago.
His
So-
son was there.
Oh, so he told the story. He said that apparently there was a Yid that was in Kathmandu. He's in business. Guess it was not He ended up there for Pesach, and there was a couple of Yiddelach there, and they made a seder. And he wrote a letter to the Rebbe. He said there was a whole bunch of Israelis. They made a seder. It was nothing. It was like no one was leading it. It was just pustum vist. It was like it wasn't. And he thinks someone he's writing to say, or he's writing. He just wants to write to the Jewish organization. Maybe someone should look into it. Maybe someone could do something about it. He wrote a letter to the Rebbe. The Rebbe took the letter, Kamashu, and wrote like the Rebbe used to do, wrote a note on it, on the letter, saying, I'd like Tzira Gudus Chabad to look into this. The letter was delivered to Rabbi Castell. So he said he looked into it, and here there's not many Jews live in Kathmandu. There's nothing. In his mind, there was.
At that time.
So he asked Rabbi Chadaka. Rabbi Chadaka said, okay. So the Rebbe said you should take care of it. So just write a letter to that Jew that you looked into it, and he wrote a letter to the Tzid that we looked into it. Don't worry, it's fine. Okay. He gets. He says his son was in Shlichus in Australia, and he gets a call from his son. His son remembered that his father got this letter that the Rebbe asked him to look into it, and there was a break for Pesach. He wasn't going to come home from New York, so he was looking for something to do. He said, maybe I can go to Kathmandu. Go. Yeah. It cost. So, as you know, Tzira Gudus Chabad never had a huge budget. And it was that way. Today is the same thing. So, no, it's a different organization. There's no connection.
Different casa.
So, the only thing they have is they own that building on Kingston Avenue, where now there's that SM bench and there's a couple,
Building.
the old Farban building. So he went to Rabbi Chadakov. Rabbi Chadakov, he told him to come back. Immediately, Rabbi Chadakov gave him a check for $6,500. Apparently, anyone that knows about Rabbi Chadakov,
If he gives you the check like that.
that check look like that is like unbelievable.
That's only 1980
Right, 1982, 6,500 from Rabbi Chadakov is like, it's like saying 50K. So the Bochum went, this was the first Seder. And they went there thinking that they have a Seder for 50 people. They went there was a restaurant there that Israelis hang out. So they put up a sign. Oh, the Rebbe, it's interesting, like the Rebbe was involved in details. The Rebbe wanted that whoever goes, that there should be at least one bocher that is Hebrew speaking. Israeli, could relate to the Israelis, because most of the guys that are going to come to the Seder are going to be Israeli.
Yeah,
They went. They put up a sign. If you want to come to the Seder, register. Just put down your name so we know how many people to cook for. 500 people signed. They didn't know where to get there. They didn't know where do you get enough tables? Where do you get tables and chairs for so many people? They had some contractor that they had a extra boards, and they put boxes on the boards to make tables and chairs. They worked really, really hard. They got Israelis to help them out all night to cook, and it was a big deal to organize. This was the first big Seder in the Far East. But what the thing is that what was interesting to me is that after the project was over, someone wrote about it in the paper. They sent a report to the Rebbe and they sent him a copy. The Rebbe sent again a note that this should be highly publicized. The Rebbe wanted it to be publicized. The Rebbe wanted, that was part of the bottom line is that was the first of many, many huge, this started an incredible trend. There's today the Storim that Chabad make in the Far East. There's Storim that have 300 people, 400 people. There's one Seder that has over 2,000 people annually. 2,000 people. No, Thailand, I think. There's one Seder that boasts to have.
Rabbi Wilhelm.
He has how many? Right, Rabbi Wilhelm. So unbelievable.
No, but his Chabad house was set up specifically for hikers.
Now, let me tell you a story of L'Chatchila Riber. I was with my wife several years ago in Guatemala. So there's like somewhere out in the Whoop, there's a lake, a volcanic, I forgot the name of the place, Atatlan. Like there's these little islands there with these tribes. They dressed like 2,000 years ago. They're like, it's a different world. And it's a lawless place too. Israelis love these places. Israelis love these places. So one of these islands, so the kids, I was with my wife, so we had this, you pay peanuts, a push of peanuts on this rickety boat. The only problem was that there's like, each time it was like I'm saying a goyim when I come back alive. This is stormy waters and this tiny rickety boat. We had a baby on it. Anyway, but Baruch Hashem, we made it. So we came.
I noticed.
Yeah. So they have a shliach there, young Israeli guy, and he couldn't believe it. The Lubavitcher family shows up with a baby. He also had a baby, the same age. So we spent the day with them. It was great. The babies were playing, and we just spent the whole day with them. It was very nice, pleasant, nice young man. Whenever I see him in 770, it's like I give him whatever is in my wallet. It's like unbelievable. It's like the kids are. So he has a seder every year. He says he has the last seder he had close to 500 people. So he said the story was like this: his Chabad house, he was renting this place. Right next to him was a discotheque. That they had only trouble from this disco. Only trouble they had. First of all, there was a lot of noise, and he had only trouble from this place. So he didn't know what to do, and he also needs to expand. He was trying to find another place, but it's not easy to find another place. He said his friend told him on Eitzah, Bodaku Menusa. Tested and tried and tested, it works. At the Seder, you're going to have 500 Israelis, right? They do the Dam Tzvardei Akinen, right? Pass out a big bucket and collect. Don't throw it out. Collect all the wine. When you finish the Seder, you come back at Chabad house, pour it on the roof of your neighbor, the discotheque. Friend told him, tell him this Bodaku Menusa works. Shluchim tried it. He says he tried it. He took the wine, he poured it on the roof. He said next week it was like miraculous. They were out of business. And the owner of the building came to him and asked if he wants a 15 years lease.
That's a price.
Who discovered this?
So that's L'Chatchila Riber. So
Is there an amount?
Beis Iyar is the time to jump in. Huh?
Is there an amount that you have to have? A gallon, 2 gallons?
I don't know.
Can you add to it?
Exactly. So l'chaim, that we should take the koyach, the Rebbe Marash, and everything in our Avodas Hashem. Instead of doing it l'chatchila runter, negotiations with the Yetzer Hara is a very tough thing. We should jump into the projects that we have to do in a oifen of l'chatchila riba. L'chaim. You gotta show it to everyone if you show it. You wanna
Put it on the big screen.
Yifrach biyom.
Beis, the Beis student. He's the nice guy.
What is this video?
What?
Every day, a different one.
That's what they sent you today? Unbelievable. You get from them every day?
Yeah, I get the same thing.
Oh, yeah?
Bracha? What's the guy's name? Yeah, the same video every day. This is what you get?
You want me
Here you go.
Catch up. Like alumni.
Yeah, you do like,
As an event in Israel.
yes, every year, people that were
That was in his Beis Chabad. Wow. Chaim. Yellow Chaim? Why did the yellow?
to get somebody to hook you up.
I'm a member of the gym.
You come also to
I found from them,
Farbrengen
I
with
found
us.
had a dollar.
You don't have a watch.
And I wrote a date on it.
Start.
And he goes.
I went online and I found that they sent me the pictures, they sent me the video.
Where did you Farbrengen with him?
Huh?
You gave it him the dollars.
No, I looked online.
Was in,
Go online, you can look, you can do, they have archives, you can look. Every Sunday they have little
He
pictures.
came to Farbrengen.
So you got a picture?
Chaim, Chaim.
Now you got a dollar. I was a little kid, and I got the video, and I passed by the Rebbe, and I said, we want Mashiach.
That's what you said?
Yeah. Be my brother.
You have a video of
I
it?
have it, I'll show you. Get it.
Oh, come on, you have to show it to me.
There's
This
a
is on me.
museum in Brooklyn called the Kleiman Jewish Holocaust Museum.
So
Borough. It's not in Borough Park anymore. It's on Strickland Avenue. You know where El Crib is?
What's El Crib?
It's a hall.
Huh?
It's a hall. It's a mill basin.
It's Italian kid.
So right after it, there's a building, and this guy Kleiman owns the building, and that's where they put now the thing. So they had a signing from some lady named Wilkins who was born in Shanghai during the war, and they invited me, and when I came in the door, so they asked me what my name was. I told them my name is Ben Sion Chanus. Oh, you're the donor. I said, okay. I was just thinking to myself, before I went to see exhibit or anything, that people go into a museum, like the Museum of Modern Art or the Museum of Natural History, whatever, and they have paintings there, and next to it, donated by so-and-so. So, you know, I felt pretty good, you know, because I gave all these papers and other kinds of things to this museum, and I have certified copies of it. So until Rosh Hashanah, they're going to be having this exhibit on the Jews in Shanghai, and in every single area, there's something to do with Chabad, where it has things which I put in. Apparently, they told me that I was the first one that gave them a treasure trove of things to do with Shanghai, and since then other people gave stuff as well. So they have a big room. It's around the size of the shul, with all kinds of different things and some artifacts.
Is it now?
Where did you get your article?
It's going now. What? And every place where I put in there, in each place there's something. It says here, donated by Ben Sion Chanowitz.
Where did you get the article?
What?
Very good.
It's from my father. My father
Very
was in
good.
Shanghai.
You should make an event with Beis Menachem Mendel for your buddies.
Yeah. No, you can call them up and get
You should make a Farbrengen. Chaim L'chaim. It's a story that Rebbe Marash. It's again told by Rabbi Parlov. That actually two nice stories. One is that the Rebbe Marash, Zivu Glishin, married married a very close relative. Ben Achoise, Kipshute. His older brother, he was going to be his father-in-law. By the Nebuch, they got married, and then the Kala got sick right after the wedding and passed away 2 weeks later. Then they got remarried. So at that chasna, the Bill Paracha was there with the chasna. It was the youngest son that had Tzemach Tzedek. So the Rebbe Tzemach Tzedek was there. Bill Paracha was a big chassid, and he said L'chaim to the Rebbe Marash's oldest brother, who was his father-in-law now. And he said, you don't know your mechuten. In other words, your son-in-law's father, you don't know him.
He knows his father.
Right. Because Chassidim, the thing was, you don't know a Rebbe. But Gezen the Rebbe, you know the Rebbe. So apparently the Tzemach Tzedek overheard that. So the Tzemach Tzedek says, und der Chosen weiß nicht. He also doesn't know the Chosen. Another story he tells us, a remarkable story, and I heard this years ago from our Mashpia when we were kids, but that was a strong impression. This is a story of a Gabba, a Shamash, a guy that worked in the house of the Rebbe Marash. His name was Bere. His name was Doiv Ber. Apparently he was Fest, a guy, a big guy. I can remember 770, the Vada Masada, those guys that give you a push. Yeah. So he worked for the Rebbe Marash. One night, the Rebbe Marash, in the middle of the night, he wakes him up and he says, I need you. Wash Negovasa. He washes Negovasa right away. But I don't want you to be scared. And he repeats, but tonight that you're not have no pachat. This is better. I was thinking now this is the big night. He's going to see Iyar, Mashiach, Tzidkenu, Echia, Shiloni. He's going to see some, because the Rebbe Marash told him a few times that he wants to take him, but tonight that he has no pachat. He said, don't worry, I have no pachat. So he took him into his room and he went over to the bookcase or something, and he took out a box of powder. He gave him the box and he laid down on the couch and he picked up his shirt and he said, I'd like you to put the powder on the parent. So what happened was that he was Nebuch so sick in his stomach that the skin on top of his flesh was all gone, and it was like raw flesh, and he apparently was incredible pain. So he picked up pieces of flesh and he asked them to put the powder in. So this guy fainted. So the Rebbe Marash called the Negelwasser Shissel, poured water over him till he woke up. And the Rebbe said, you made a deal with me. You said you're not going to have pachat. You're not going to be scared. I need your help. Could you please keep on going? So he said, Bekitzer, he worked there for quite a while with the Rebbe Marash. And the Rebbe Marash said, okay, fine, thank you very much, and go back to sleep. He said, you can imagine I didn't sleep that night. And the Rebbe Shmuel Groinem told the story. And the Rebbe Shmuel Groinem said that it was, to him, the pella was that everyone knew that Rebbe Marash walked around as he was a rich man, and he was always smiled. There was always a smile on his face. And Bechlal, his style was to say, he always had a nice joke to say. And he said, we never knew, little did we know, how much physical agony he was in. How was it shaykh that he had such a smile on his face, and he always had a glad vertel? That's Lachat Chila Riber. The Rebbe says that Lachat Chila Riber doesn't only mean to jump over the other guy's head. That's not a kunz. To jump over my own head, that's Lachat Chila Riber. It's a Shgocha protest that so we're standing now at Farbrengen between the month of Nisan and Iyar. And what's the Shem of Nisan? Nisan is to jump, to fly, to jump. Posach Hashem. Diluk, all the Maimonim explain that the Yidden, they were not ready for this, but they took a leap. They jumped. What's Avodah Shem of Iyar in Chassidus? The whole Avodah Shem in Iyar is that you count every day, you mevared every midah one at a time, you come through the midas, first you take chesed, sheba chesed, gvura sheba chesed, Tiferes, Chesed, you comb through each midah, you go through your character trait, you purify each one. By definition, Nisan and Iyar are two opposites. Nisan is to jump. The Eden were, the tumah was still intense, but they jumped. Iyar is to purify each midah, and there's no jumping there. Sagt the Rebbe that the Avodas Hashem is to have both. That Avodas Hashem is in other words, sometimes you have a person that starts increasing in the Shmiras HaTorah VaMitzvahs, right? The Shliach sees that, but you see sometimes it's dangerous. A person takes, it's jumping and jumping and jumping, but it has to seep in a pnimius. You have to sometimes take one step after the other step after the other step. So there is one avoid of jumping, and there's another avoid of taking step after step. But Maila is to connect them both. That the person has a pnimis avoida and avodas Hashem. That the changing is not on the outside. Not only it's in the hat and the jacket and the gartel, but in the inside. But that it doesn't go slow, but that it's constantly moving. And that's Beis Iyar. Beis Iyar is l'chatchila riba, to connect the avodas Hashem of Nisan, the avodas Hashem of Iyar. L'chaim, and our avodas Hashem should be in every single step of the way should be l'chatchila riba. First of all, we should be moving. We shouldn't be stagnant. And when we move, we should move in a way of l'chatchila riba. L'chaim. Hu Elokeinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Mashiach Yoshinu, V'yigalenu, Yoyai Shenis Bekanoi, V'yashminu, V'rachmav, V'inei Kol Chai Leimor, Heyu Al V'yeschem, Aris V'yivishis V'yaz Lachem, Leiloikim, Heyu Al V'yeschem, Aris V'yivishis V'yaz Lachem, Leiloikim, Hey ho, Elokeinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Mashiach Yoshinu, V'yigalenu, Ay Shenis Bekanoi, V'yashminu, V'rachmav, you have a kind mind, hang out the Yisrael, Achmis, Lilia is Lachem, Leilokim, hang out the Yisrael, Achmis, Rishis Veya is Lachem, Leilokim,
What's the history with the song? How did they get that name?
I think the song is from the Rebbe Marash, but I'm not sure. It's a good question. It's probably the Rebbe named it, L'chatchila riba. But I don't know. It's interesting because this whole term, L'chatchila riba,
I see it's pronounced Shal Shidduch when we.
who? L'chatchila riba?
It's pronounced Shal Shidduch.
Kind of, they never really made a big deal out of this whole thing. No one. It's not like mentioned a lot in the Rebbe Marash's Toivus. It's just the Rebbe. It's mentioned once in a letter of the Friedrich Rebbe, and the Rebbe made a big deal out of it. I guess the pshat is that the Rebbe saw that was the inyan of. The Rebbe wanted to explain to us what we can take from the Rebbe Marash.
And this song just takes everything in, I guess.
Chaim l'chaim. Hayei Masai Kasiman Elech Sheyavutzu Manasech Achutza Hayei Masai Kasiman Elech Sheyavutzu Manasech Achutza Masai kosima lech sheyavutzu mosai 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 kosima lech sheyavutzu ya 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 la 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 Masai 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 kasima le shayavutza la 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 ya 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 la ya la la ya 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 Masai masai kasimar lech sheyavutzu l'chaim l'chaim. So the Rebbe said a story about his Zayda. His Zayda came to Lubavitch, spent some time after the wedding. The style was then that the younger light would go to Lubavitch and they'd spend some time learning there. Then they'd go back home. Came back to his town. He described what's going on in Lubavitch. People wanted to know. There was no Yeshiva World News. There was no pictures and things. They wanted to hear. So he described. It's not the people that were. It was like in Beis Medrash. It was people that were asking, were not big lamdonim, that wanted to know the latest chidush of the Rebbe Marash. They just wanted to hear what's going on. So he described what Lubavitch looks like, and he described how the Rebbe Marash lived a sort of a very affluent life. The Rebbe Marash, at that time, there was the Rebbe Marash used to invest his money in the Russian stock market. He was a wealthy man, and he built a fancy house, and he said the poets that didn't have such a fancy apparatus like the Rebbe Marash had this. So there's a story from Shmuel Groinem. There was once that the Rebbe Marash was very medayik in his time. It was like you can set the clock on the Rebbe Marash. This guy once was a little shikr. He came 10 minutes late to the job, so he was fired. So when he was in the job, he knew he had to keep his tongue. But now that he was fired, he was really angry. He was talking with. So he went to one of the Balabatim Lubavitch, and he was saying that this was really angry. So he told him, "This guy is crazy." He says, "Such a rich man. Every day I have to take him out there to the forest, and everyone thinks he goes to get fresh air. What he does is he goes into this pit, and he starts crying. All of a sudden, these little these insects come all around him, and they bite him up, and he's crying. Why is he crying? Why is he crying? What is he crying about? He's such a rich man. He has honor, his glory, his money. He probably wants some more." So the guy said. So that was the story that Rebbe Marash, the Rebbe Zayda was describing the wealth and the affluence and the holach elech of what the house looked like and what is. So someone asked, "Tzaddik should waste so much money? That money could go to tzedakah. Money could go for better purposes. It's like a baltashkas." So The Rebbe Zayda said, Petach, Petach. It's Lashon, in Yiddish, it means fool. Who do you think the Eibishter created the gold and silver for? When the Eibishter created gold and silver, who did he create it for? He created it for the Goyim. He created it for the Tzaddik. For the Tzaddik, he created the Kesef and the Zav. It was interesting because on the one hand, the Rebbe, the Rebbe Marash, we see from the story that in the Chitzonius was like lachatchila ribber in a wealthy way, and that was the Rebbe's koch that a person should that dovish begdusha, a person should always be breit, should be. But the Gemara says that Rebbe HaKodesh, that he said before he died that he never had pleasure in his he never had pleasure from this world, even like a small, like the edge of his finger. Tosfos asks, the Gemara talks about the affluence of Rebbe HaKodesh. He was a very rich man, and there was always chazeres, snoy, like Besachem, like Shalom. It was all the fancy foods on his tables every single day of the year. A fancy kokish cake, not only on the when Nossi bird, every single day. So what's the pshat loy nana? So Tosfos says this sounds out. Chassidus says the pshat is poshut. It was everything he did was l'shem shamayim. It wasn't nana. It wasn't a way of nana. It wasn't nana. If you think about it in a way, this is really what l'chatchila ribber is in avodas Hashem. What would be la'arunta? La'arunta would be that if a person will be wealthy, then v'nom levavcha v'shachachtas Hashem l'kecha v'yishman yishurim v'yivat that a person v'yishman yishurim gets very fat. Not gashmis. Means that the wallet gets grease. Chelo chita. V'yishman yishurim. He gets the wallet gets very fat. V'yivat, and then he kicks. In other words, he's there. So a person that, like we learned in the Gemara today, that the person that's Pirkei Noah, Metupel, Ve'en Loi, a person Nabach, he has children, and the pantry is empty, and he has no money to pay the bills, so Nabach has a broken heart, and he could daven, he could be a shlich tzibur. So in a way, that's l'chatchila arunta. That's arunta. But l'chatchila ribber is that a person, it could have the wealth, and gashmisdika wealth, and ruchnisdika wealth, and still is sensitive to another yid, and still cares about another yid, and still spends the time, and knows what and feels the pain of another yid, and spends the time to help another yid, begashmias, beruchnis, begashmias. That's lachatchila ribber. In a sense, that's avodah lachatchila ribber. In other words, that from the outside it looked, wow, it's a rich man, but really b'pnimius it's all a part of the avodas Hashem itself. It's all a chelik in avodas Hashem. The story about the Mendel of Eredok, that once he was traveling, he's passed by one of the big Talmidim, the Gaonim and Talmidim of the Magid was Rabbi Yaakov Yosef Polnoa. He was a Gaon also, was a big misnagid. They go in, and the Baal Shem Tov tried to get him as a Talmud and became Talmud Baal Shem Tov. He stopped by in the town of Yaakov Yosef Polnoa, and he saw him, and he came out to hug him, and he kissed him. He was his friend, from the Magid's Cheder. And the people asked him, this guy, apparently the Mendel of Eredok used to dress like very stylish. The Yidden used to wear a certain bad. He was like like a sharp businessman. They said, this guy is not, he's not a Talmud Chochem. He said there was once a king that had incredible treasure. He couldn't figure out where he's going to hide. He can get guards, he can't trust the guards. Where is he going to hide this treasure? He figured out the best way to hide it. That he had a place where the behemoths are in this barn, and there was a pile full of, the waste that the behemoths leave out from their body, and there was a big pile, and the king hid it underneath. No one's going to krich over there. So he is really his anov is incredible. Where is he hiding it? He's hiding it under these, fancy, the nice fancy, the gray hat and the feather in the side. That's where he's hiding it. The Rebbe used to tell Bekesha the story of the Ruzhana, that the Ruzhana used to walk with fancy also begotten. And once they used to have these gold shoes. That doesn't sound very fancy to me, gold shoes. It sounds like, torture to me, but I don't know, if someone thought it was really fancy. they figured out that he didn't have any soles underneath, so it was like really painful. But that's a certain lechatchila riber. They again from Rabbi Perlov Zayda, from Drizzen Zayda, Rabbi Perlov. He says that there was a chosed, he was a mishpacha with the Rebbe Marash. Rebbe Marash used to travel a lot. So there was some famous park somewhere in France. Apparently it was in the summer, and it wasn't the place where everyone was fully dressed, or dressed very tzniusdik. So it was Paris is Paris. And he sees that the Rebbe Marash is sitting on the bench, and it looks like as if he's taking it all in. He's looking around. He's having a good time. He was a pella otzim to him. And he was not wearing these cool tinted glasses. They came back to the hotel. The Rebbe Marash put down the glasses, and he went to another room or something. And he picked up the glasses. It wasn't tinted b'chlal. It was tinted the other way. You couldn't look out of it b'chlal. You couldn't see through their glasses. You could not see through them. Couldn't see. The Rebbe Marash needed, for whatever reason, the doctors believed that he needed to travel. He went to some places because of his health. He never passed away very young. They say that one of the times when he left Lubavitch, so the Balabat, what was the industry in Lubavitch? What was the economy? The Rebbe was the economy. People came, so the Balabat and Lubavitch sold stuff, and that was the exactly tourist economy. So when the Rebbe Marash was sick, and he has to travel a lot.
Business was slow.
So business was bad. So they came once to complain to him that when he leaves,
No business.
no business. So he said, as the behema eats akorete, he eats from like this thing called in Yiddish akorete. So when this korete, this keli, cracks in half, you think the behema is fadaiget? What's going to happen? That doesn't worry. Balabayas has to provide for the behemoth if he wants the milk to flow, and he wants it. The behemoth doesn't think, what's going to happen now that this keli is broken? How am I going to eat? The Balabayas is daige. He said, how is the parnasa going to come? It's not your daige. It's the Rebbeinu Shalom's daige. The Balabos is daige. We should have only such an attitude in life on the Chatchila Riber, that we have no daigas. It's the Rebbeinu Shalom's daigas, not our daigas. Not my business. These bills, they're not my bills. It's the Rebbeinu Shalom's bills. I happen to pay them, but none of my worries. Could you imagine if you had a job to pay someone's bills? Yeah?
Easy job.
What's your daigas? It's paid, it's not paid. It's not your daigas. It's Chalishkan daige. So, l'chaim, we should live a life of l'chatchila riber. Everything in Avodas Hashem should be l'chatchila riber. Our learning Torah should be in a way l'chatchila riber. Avos Yisrael should be in a way l'chatchila riber. Our daily life should be in a way l'chatchila riber. In Kedusha, in sitting in the park, in New York, in Paris, wherever should be in a way l'chatchila riber. And in all our everyday life, when it comes to our parnasa, should be no daigis in a way of l'chatchila riber, and also the chitzonistic trappings should be like the Rebbe Marash, the Rebbe Koch, that the Rebbe wanted breit. The Rebbe wanted breit. That we should have breit. We should think big when it comes to tzedakah. We should think big in everything. Davar shebe kedusha. L'chaim.
The Rebbe also uses
Don't forget Alamechia, whoever is
That's what I'm saying. It was really the Rebbe's image of the Rebbe Marash. Ki v'simchat eitzayu v'shalom tivot